Very good days, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's the end of the day, and I hope you guys are still alive, yeah? Okay, with the topic of building high-performance teams on a budget, we have Mr. Jonas Chelbat. He is a managing director and a co-founder of Umai. Over 10 years of experience, sales, marketing, business analyst, being an entrepreneur himself, building great companies with extraordinary people while seeking continuous intellectual stimulation through a broad set of experiences in dynamic, challenging, and high-intensity environments. Holds a bachelor's science degree in economics and business administration, Copenhagen Business School. Let's hear it from Mr. Jonas. Please welcome.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Honored to be here. Can I just move that? Can I move the mouse? Is that a? There we go.
Okay.
Fantastic. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for showing up. Sincerely an honor. Hope I won't waste your time, and that all of you leave with somewhat of tangible value when I'm done speaking. So I'll be talking today about building high-performance teams. So my definition of high-performance teams, and how to do that on a budget. Doesn't mean everyone will be seeking to do the same as we're doing, but I want to share my thoughts on how we do things without having the same money as some of the larger players. Here we go. So I'm from Copenhagen, Denmark. Background in finance, used to work in investment banking. Switched over to building internet companies a little bit before the whole hype, before it became popular to build tech companies. And I've been doing that in a number of countries around the world, specifically Asia, Australia, and Europe. Here we go. So naturally, so you can see that some of these companies that I've been kind of part of building, they have very, very large budgets. So the things I'm putting up here are the things that succeeded. Naturally, there's a list that's double as big or double as large, which didn't. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about how do the people that you bring into your organization impact your future? How do you find these people? How do you retain these people? So specifically, as a startup, so how many in here run a company? How many in here run a small company? Okay, yeah. How many of you have started a company in the last 4 months? None of you. How many have started a company in the last year? Okay. How many of you have more than 30 employees? All right, so 3 of you. There we go. Okay, cool. So being a small company, typically you have a lot less resources than these big names that you see up here. Today you've seen a lot of talks. For those of you who were here yesterday, you also kind of saw a lot of talks, and some of those focused on the importance of hiring the right people. Yeah? The people that you hire define your organization. When things get tough, when things are good, all comes down to the people you bring in. So, how do we compete with the Facebooks, the Tinders, the Spotifys, and the Goldman Sachs that are paying 5 times what we have? They have a much better reputation. Someone works for these guys, and everyone else is interested in employing them. And it's kind of a checkbox mark on your resume. How does a small company compete with them? How do you steal their high performers? Step number 1, you need to define for yourself what is your definition of high performers. What is a high performer for you? And the team that you want to build, that you define as a high performer, where is that standard? What is that for you? In order to do that, use yourselves. My standards are not the same as everyone in here. Some of you have children, you might be married, you might have different priorities in life, different ways of working. And we're all different, complex human beings. So first of all, use yourselves as the benchmark. Not everyone is interested in creating the next Goldman Sachs with 16-hour workdays, with the up and out culture, and so forth. So use yourself as a benchmark. Typically, try to go for 2 types of people, okay? Either go for people that are above your level within their particular field. So Mark Zuckerberg has a very good saying. He only hires people he can learn from within the field that they are hired for. So if I'm a very, very good engineer, when I hire somebody within sales, they have to be able to teach me. When I hire an operations person, that person has to be dramatically more knowledgeable than I am. So either always go for someone that you can learn from within the field that you hire them, or go for people who are not yet at your level, but with the right development, with the right training, they can go above your level within a short period of time. The top talent. Cool. So how do you identify them? How do you find these top talent or these top performers? So you've now identified where the bar is, where you are, what you're looking for. You've defined somewhat of a profile. So this is typically the type of person with a type of background that I'm looking for. These are the values that they care about, the things that I feel is important when I bring them into my family. First, you have to understand what they're looking for. So just everybody, I'm making this, I've made this in a very basic form. It's very much kind of written form. I'll have them send it out after. So ideally, leaving this, you have some actionable things to take home with you that are very much written in common language. So first, understand what they're looking for. So what is it they value? And what you'll find with most high performers, also sometimes defined as overachievers, they're looking for these 4 things. So they're looking for a fast-moving ship. A ship that's going the same place as they're going, which is forward. They're looking to grow, so personal development. They themselves want to evolve. They want to become a better professional, a better individual. Opportunities. And finally, they want to be valued for what they bring to the table. Not how long they've been with a company. Not how old they are, who they know, whose family they're part of. They want meritocracy. Outside of this, you have to understand what is your USP, your unique selling point. You as an organization attracting people, whether you're a single individual who's looking for a second employee, or whether you're a large company. What is it that you can offer that the Goldman Sachses, the Facebooks, the Twitters and so forth cannot? That is exposure and that is impact. Top performers, they want to be exposed and they want to have impact on where things are moving. They don't care if they're 16 years old, 22, 32. They don't care if the person who's sitting above them has been doing what they've been doing for 20 years. What they care about is who is moving this ship forward. There's a saying in Silicon Valley which goes that the first 90 days of a company defines its performance culture for the rest of the company's history. Of course, disclaimer, sometimes that changes when a new CEO comes in or a new captain. When you start a startup, when you start a small company, you're often very, very desperate for employees. So you're doing everything yourself. You're answering the phone, trying to get the website built, you're maybe shipping the products depending on what you do. You're doing everything else. And really what you want is help. You have a friend or a friend of a friend or a cousin, or you attended some event at Magic and you met this young student who really wants to help you out. And it's right there in front of you. This relief that allows you to go to bed 3 hours earlier at night. I think most of you can kind of relate to that. What you have to be aware of is your first actions, the first people that you bring on board in those first months will define how your organization will look moving forward. So what do you do? How fast do you move? What expectations do you put to yourself? And what expectations do you put to your team? Is it okay to go home at 6 p.m.? Answer those emails tomorrow? When it's 9 p.m., do you start checking receipts to make sure that expenses are properly claimed? Where do you set that standard? Second, here we go. The people you hire. For those of you who run companies with employees, we've all experienced the red one down here. So what they call here the C player. I call it the what was I thinking of player. So kind of when they're gone, you look back and say, what in God's name was I doing? When you define your company in those first 90 days, how many of you would like the organization to be filled with what was I thinking hires or average hires? Or how many of those employees with you, your family members, your team members, and so forth, how many of those would you want to be this flying Superman here? How many of yourselves that have the same standard, the same expectational level, the same attitude, the same work ethic as you have, how much of your organization would you like to be those? And naturally, I assume for most of you in here, that is the case. So, mediocre people, they really do love working with other mediocre people. Yeah. They set mediocre goals. Everything is achievable on target. 100% runway how to get there. Yeah. When they have performance reviews, they tap each other's shoulder and say, "Oh, you're a great guy." Everything is all right. There's no gaps. There's no challenges. And they really hate being challenged. They sit in a boardroom, 6 people or in a large room, and everybody's friendly to each other. There's nobody who's pointing, "Hey, why do we do it this way? Why are you doing it that way?" When they come back with their work, and it's 6 p.m. and people are about to leave home, they hate when somebody taps on their shoulders saying, "Hey, here are 6 errors," or "Hey, you need to change this." Which essentially means, "Hey, you need to stay 2 hours longer. Hey, you need to cancel with your friends tonight because we got to hit our goals. You got to call your wife and tell her you're not coming for dinner. Or see your baby tomorrow morning." Top performers, they want to be challenged. They love when somebody comes and says, "Hey, why did you do it this way? Why not that way?" They love when people throw more on their plate. It's a challenge. Same in sports. When you look at sports teams, you have the Premier League, for those of you who watch soccer, or for those of you who watch football. So you have the Premier League, and then you have all these other divisions. And what defines the people who play in the Premier League is the expectational level that they have of themselves and their peers. When the coach comes and puts more pressure on them, or gives them more challenges, or says, "Hey, we're going to go to another tournament," which means you have to cancel that vacation that you were planning because we just got into the European Cup, or whatnot. Here we go. Another small thing which you'll notice is very intrinsic, but you'll notice that high performers don't get offended when you confront them aggressively. They are very much aware that what you're doing is in the company's best interest. It is very clear, for those of you who've ever done consulting, it's very clear when you come into a room and you start challenging the individuals who are sitting there, who are the high performers, so who have the high performance mindset and who do not. Mediocre performers, they very much take things personal. They do sweat the small stuff, and they don't like getting out in the red zone. High performers, they take it as a challenge. It's what raises their bar. Here we go. Another great thing about top performers, they love working with other top performers. Yeah? It's one of the most amazing things. You might be 2 people in a room. You might have just started out your organization. The first 5 employees you hire, if they're back at one of these here stages, and the 6th employee is a rock star. He or she comes in with an amazing track record, amazing attitude. You can feel, you can see, they will add immense value very quickly. Do you think it appeals to them to work with 5 other mediocre players? No, it doesn't. So what do? Do you fire all 5? No, you don't. How do you attract that 6th person? How do you change that curve that you've created in those 90 days? It's pretty impossible. So when that voice screams down at you saying, oh, I would love to go home 3 hours earlier. I really need that extra staff, that extra help. Really think to yourselves, is this person who I really want to attract long term? Do I want to work with this person 2 years from now? Do I want 10 of this person? If I could duplicate, hire all his or her twins, would I want to work with them day and night? Are they the same level or above what I am? Cool. So, how do you find these top performers? Lots of ways. In my company, Umai, we do it typically in 2 ways. So we know that smart people, top people, A players, they know other A players, right? Smart people like to hang out with smart people. So one is, of course, word of mouth. Second is LinkedIn. There's both a pull effect in having smart people, and then, of course, there's a lot of push issues. So the pull effect, which is amazing about LinkedIn, is anyone can go on your company profile and see who works there. Top performers always do their research, their due diligence, before making decisions. Any A player you will ever interview in your life will go on your LinkedIn and see who are you working with. And if you're a small company, they'll do it even faster. What you want is you want them impressed. You want them looking at those 6, 30, 50, 200 people and saying, wow, I would love to work with these people. That's inspiring. I would love to be around these people every day. I want to go where they're going or where they are. I want to be exposed to people who've done what they've done and so forth. Cool? So, we use LinkedIn very much in our approach. We very much believe in what we call, or what is called, the law of averages. So for those of you who are not familiar with it, it is essentially by, in simple terms, doing an action a number of times will give you the desired outcome. So on average, if I do X number of times, I will get Y. Okay? So I've used here a girl in a bar scenario. I'm not the most handsome guy, but I know that some females on this planet do find me attractive. There we go. Okay? That means if I take a statistical approach using the law of averages to finding that girl, I know that on average every, let's say 1 out of 100, okay, 1 out of 100 girls fancy me. And if I know this, it means I need to go in a bar and on average speak with 100 women. Then I'll find that one. Same very, very, very much applies to LinkedIn. So essentially your recruiting strategy should bear this in mind. Most companies are very much aware of this when it comes to sales. They build their sales departments, their sales strategies, the foundation of how they operate in sales around the law of averages. Some people call that funnel strategy. We do the same when it comes to recruiting. There we go. Step number 1, we identify the profiles, very much like a recruitment firm. 2, we reach out. 3, we interview people. Depending on the seniority of the role, we do between 1 and 5 interviews. And then finally, we give an offer. We're a very small company. Yeah. Nearly 40 employees. Here we go. These are specific numbers from our company. Yeah. So hope you guys can take that as a tangible benefit. Roughly 1 out of 30 people that we interview in the first stage go to the second stage, are passed on. Second to third, 1 out of 5. Third to fourth, 1 out of 3. And finally, they've been vetted quite a bit, so 3 out of 5 goes. Then at the end, we give an offer. This offer is a little bit complicated because we are still a startup, and the definition of a startup is a fast-growing entity, fast-growing company, right? So what matters for us very much is when can they start? We need them we need them yesterday. Always. Isn't always possible. 2, we can't always offer the salary that our competitors can offer, that the competing companies can offer. And finally, 3, we give equity. Right now, we do between 80 and 110 interviews per week, and we hire between 1 and 4 candidates per month. This is very atypical for small companies. Most, they go and they hire a recruitment firm, and they use them. Well, they put up some job posts, then they continue kind of focusing on their business, and they get a few candidates back. Some show up at events like this. They tell people about their company, then they have a few students, or a few people come up. We're very aggressive about it. What we look for in these high performers are things where a lot of checkboxes need to be matched. So for every single person we speak with, and there's 8 billion people or whatnot on this planet, there's amazing people out there. For someone to match our desires, so our culture, our aggressiveness, our expectation on overachievement, as well as being able to start when we need them to start, accept the small salary that we pay, and the equity amount, that's a lot of people you need to run through. And we do that. So we don't compromise on the culture that we have. That's a value that we've chosen. We rather increase our efforts. So, most people ask me, Jonas, how do you do this without taking time away from growing your business? And that's already tough enough. Tony Robbins, for those of you who know him, life coach, probably the world's most successful performance coach. He has a fundamental rule which he communicates to everyone, and that is you are only as good as the standards you set for yourself. Your organization is only as good as the standards set by the leaders to themselves. You want to build a high-performance culture? Of course, within your world of high performance, you have to sacrifice. 1, of course, utilize your team. Otherwise, do interviews in times where growing the business is not key. And most people aren't interested in this. They would rather go have dinner with their friends. They'd rather go on that date in the weekend or go to the cinema or whatnot. This is really what it requires. That is doing interviews in the weekends, doing interviews between 10 and 2. So forth. Shorten down your dinners, your lunch breaks. What you'll find with high performers once you implement this is very, very interesting. You will find very quickly who in your company this appeals to and who it does not. Who is looking to go the same place as you. And what you'll find when you ask people to do interviews on weekends or night times, or you put extra stuff on their plate, which means essentially you force them to have a shorter break, is that they either follow you or they leave. When they leave, hip hurrah. As contrarian as it sounds, you suddenly realize, holy moly, these individuals were not going or looking to go on the same train as me. So this might sound very, very harsh. And for some people, whoa, I have other priorities in life and so forth. That's amazing. You're doing people a favor here. They can go and they can strive somewhere else, where expectations are more aligned with what they expect. We go. We use a 7-day rule. So what we found is that high performers, they love speed. A lot of high performers, they are in large organizations. They're sometimes frustrated with their current situation, based on, of course, a number of things, but very often based on speed. So exposure, especially impact. Speed equals impact. So we follow 7-day recruitment rule, which means from the first day we interview a candidate, there cannot be more than 7 days until we have decided and communicated an offer or no thank you. This isn't always within our control. Sometimes the candidate doesn't have time, sometimes other things come up. But to the best of our abilities, when we run someone through 5 interviews, or 4 interviews, or 3 interviews, depending, we always push for time. The longer the time decay, the larger the decrease of interest. So consciously, you're communicating to candidates, we move fast. Either you're on this train or you're not. This also very much correlates with, we need you now. We need you to start now. Not in a month or 2 months or 3 months. So, how do you retain high performers? So, I'll talk a little bit about the mindset of us as human beings when we're in school, and when we do sports, and then suddenly when we come out in the real world. So, the whole society that we have is built up around, in the early days, rewarding good performance, right? So you play for a sports team, the best players, they're out playing, the worst players, they sit on the bench. Students, you get an F, you failed. You get an A, you got the scholarship, right? Suddenly you go out in the workforce, whether that's a large corporation, whether it's a small company, and suddenly there's all these other things that matter. Now it's not just about the output or the value that you're adding. Yeah, maybe you do performance reviews, but they're not really that straightforward. He's a nice guy, I like him, you know, that kind of thing matters, plays a role. He's been with us for 20 years. He's been here the longest. He deserves that promotion. Oh, come on. He's been with us through thick and thin. He might not be performing. He might not be the sharpest knife in the drawer. You know, but he's loyal. He stays with us. High performers, they don't like that. The word meritocracy does not align with that. Sports teams have meritocracy. Schools have meritocracy. Why should it be any different when you come out in a company? Position opens up. Okay? You have Tony. He's been here 10 years. He's always been loyal. Always been with us for thick and thin. If you're a small company, maybe he was your first employee, your first engineer. And then you have Sarah. She's been with us for maybe a year, maybe 2. She's always been doing a good job. She has a cultural impact, positively impacting the peers around her. She has an immense amount of talent, and everyone knows where she can go. Who do you promote? Tough decision. As a leader, you promote Tony, nobody's going to ask you questions, except for Sarah. Sarah, she'll see straight through that, and she'll jump out the door. Top performers see straight through that. They know what they're worth. They know what they bring to the table, and they expect to be valued on it. You promote Sarah, what happens? Everybody's going to ask you questions, except Sarah. You have to make that decision. But if you start rewarding non-high performers, if you don't reward value add over achievement, positive cultural impact, then you start to reward the opposite. And when you start to reward the opposite, you start to lose the high performers. That's when your company starts to go downhill. Even though it feels better, emotionally a lot better. You've known Tony for 10 years. Tony might not like you. You promote Sarah, what's going to happen? A lot of the Tonys, they start leaving. Whew. But, so that means I've now worked with this company for 4 years, so if I stay 4 years more, I won't get that promotion? Because they're just bringing in new people? What does that mean for me? I'm going to leave. Great. Great. That is really great. If you cannot satisfy everyone, satisfy the top talent. You want the top players to say, this is my company. This is where I belong. We're going to kick ass here. The rest will leave. Uncomfortable. You don't want the mediocre people saying, hey, This is the comfortable place. Here we go. So, what are some actions that you can do to satisfy high performance? Naturally, there's many books are written about this. Long talks are given, and I could go on for hours. I've chosen a few that are very, very, very tangible. One, have regular feedback sessions. So not your corporate performance reviews where you print out a little piece of paper and you measure them on 5 variables and whatnot. Specifically sit down with these human beings and understand, what do you want? What do you want to learn? Where do you want to go? What do you want to be exposed to? And then expose them. That's how you keep them. Move them in the direction they want to be moved in. You can't always do that. When you run a business, especially a small one, you have the nices and you have the needs. And during peak hours, you want to focus on the needs. You want to move your company forward. Beauty is, high performers, they don't mind when it becomes nice time. So what happens after 9 p.m. or weekends or early mornings? That's where you have the opportunity to put them through exposure. If you don't, they're going to go somewhere else where they can find that exposure, where they can develop in the direction that they're looking to be developed. There we go. Also, give them ownership. So big companies don't do this, and naturally there's a ton of reasons why. When you're a small company, and we're here at Magic, most startups and so forth, trying to give people ownership. There's a lot of risk to that. When you give people responsibility and they don't deliver, it costs you a lot. But what you don't want people thinking, I want to own my own company. I want to start my own company. So when I say ownership, I don't mean the equity ownership. I mean make them feel that they own what it is they're working on. So when I worked in investment banking, it was very different who owned what. But the only real people who actually owned what they were working on were the partners. There's not a single other soul in those departments that owned the projects they worked on. They were all a piece in the puzzle. When you're a small organization or a large organization that works in kind of a lean manner, you have the ability to make people feel and give them ownership over what it is they work on. Give them the responsibility. You'll see it 10 times rewarded. Finally, be their coach. This is something that requires an immense amount of time. It's something that some people are exposed to when they study. So some individuals, they meet that amazing professor, that amazing teacher that takes them under their wing and does that little extra. So outside of just the study hours, does that extra that's required for moving you forward. What you'll find in most companies is you have a boss, but you very seldom have a mentor. You very often don't have someone who is personally invested in your growth. There's some low-hanging fruits here for how you can do that, so very, very, very tangibly. And I hope all of you go home and at least do some of this next week. Give them podcasts. If you're an individual who likes to grow yourself, it means you're exposed to things. You read, you listen, you watch videos, books, articles. Share it. Give it to them. I personally give a lot of my employees specific books, and then I ask them to provide me with a reading plan back. And literally send me, when are they going to read what chapters? Putting pressure on them. Making sure that they evolve. And very often giving them books that are outside of what they would normally want to learn. Smart people, they love cerebral stimulation. Cool. How do you maximize output of high performers? So let's take this in sports. So you are with a sports team. I'm the coach. How do I take my team and make them better? So natural answer is, of course, let's put some pressure on them. Okay, we give them the right tools and then we put the pressure. What happens if we put too much pressure for too long time? Can anybody answer that? They burn out. There we go. They burn out. So what's the magic? You do sprints within the marathon. Running, building, growing companies is a marathon. If you're a high performer, you want to run that marathon faster than everyone else. And it's your coach's job, your boss's job, the leader's job to come down on that bicycle next to you and say, come on, 20 seconds faster, you can do it. Sometimes. Put the pressure. Know who you can pressure when. Try to put them in the red zone. It's an amazing thing, but what you'll find when you start putting people in the red zone, you very quickly see mediocre people drop off. And you'll see your top performers. You'll see them carry away. It's absolutely fantastic. Final thing, again, the standard you set yourself to is a standard that defines everyone below you, everyone besides you. This is hard, and a lot of things come up in life, and that is very much why you have to define what is high performance for you. You have to work 120% of what they do. You have to show the way. You can't just be the coach, you also have to be the captain of the team. And what you'll find is most people don't follow this. You'll often see the boss go home early on Friday when there's still people in the office. When you look at the specific output that's given, very often it's not the people at the top providing the top output. You have to hold yourself to a certain standard if you want to expect that from your employees. Because the high performers, if they go above you, they are out the door. There we go. All right. So I think let's do a short Q&A for anyone who has questions. Yes, sir. Could you say what your name is and maybe stand up? Stand up, please. Oh, okay. Sorry? The mic, okay. Could you start with what your name is, what you do, and yeah, then your question.
Hi, thanks, Jonas. My name is William, and I'm actually from Monash University, Malaysia, and fresh graduate actually. So I'm trying to run this startup myself. Yeah. So my question is actually not so much on the recruitment side, but in fact, it's the vice versa. How do you let go of someone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you let go of someone who's not performing?
I wouldn't say it's not performing. It would be more on like not suitable to the culture. Yeah. So because one thing I realized that you didn't really touch on the culture that much, like in terms of how you can relate that culture to someone. So what if that person thinks that, oh, I'm so good, I'm a top performer, but no one validates that. But he thinks that he himself is a top performer. How do you actually let go of someone like that? And which brings back to the question to why do you hire him at the first place, right? But what if the team was actually founded as a strangers? Unlike what you said initially, where I actually approach someone and I hire them, but it's more like maybe through competitions or something like that.
Is this person a partner or an employee?
Partner, I would say it's a partner because actually my startup is actually founded through a competition where we were actually grouped together as strangers.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I'll use simplistic terms. If you are the captain of the ship, you set the path of the ship. You set the culture, you set the expectations. People who are not aligned with that, find another ship. Simple as that. If you've chosen a partner, it gets a little bit more complex. Of course, there's ownership matters and so forth. But the ship will never sail where you want it to go if your partner is pulling it in another direction. How to let someone go? Lots of stuff online that you can find about that, but do it faster rather than later. Yeah. High performers, smart individuals, they love candor, radical candor. They like to know where they stand. Smart people, high performers, they have options. Yeah? They very much have options. They appreciate when you look them in the eye and tell them, this is where you stand. This is what's going to happen. Be straightforward. Sometimes it feels uncomfortable, but that's the name of the game. It isn't always comfortable running a company. Okay, next question. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Hi there, Jonas. My name is Isa. I'm just a normal Malaysian. All right. So
What is
I-
a normal Malaysian? What do you do?
someone who
do you
is
study or-
jobless, someone who is looking for something to do.
Okay.
So I'm just, by society standard, I'm just a normal person.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So my question is it possible for average hires, the people in the red and yellow zone, for them to transform into the green zone?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And how?
Yeah, I think the red and green is not always red and green in life. Sometimes it's just red and green in your organization. What you are looking for isn't necessarily always what they supply, but they might be, red and yellow. They might be green in another organization. Simple as that. Improving as an individual, I think that's another talk. But I think it is really about finding the people that are green for you. And as you, as an individual who's looking for opportunities, finding companies that have that green for you. Yeah? You might not want to work X hours a day, 14-hour days. You might not always want to be under pressure. You might value other things in life. Kids, wife, friends, social time.
Thank you.
There's a green spot for everyone. Maybe go work for the government. No. Side joke. Someone?
Right, thank you. Hi, Jonas. I'm Texan. I actually run a creative production company. So I have a question to ask. Look at the culture nowadays. It's encouraged startup, right? So every top performer tends to think that they are very smart and they want to run their own company, or they want to get the ownership of the company. So how do you deal with this? Do you actually tell them not to do so? Because this seems to be the dream of every top performer. But if, as a company owner or someone who manages the company, if we're giving too much ownership to them, then it tends to be a bit chaotic. So how do you do that? Do you cheat them, tell them not to have that kind of dream? Or do you? What's a tactic that you use to actually balance this? Yeah.
So I think my opinion is dramatically different than a lot of other people, likely also a lot of other people in this room. I had actually a talk at a university in Malaysia a few weeks ago specifically about this. So we're in this world where it's very, very popular to build companies. Entrepreneurship is a popular thing. Yeah, movies are made about these entrepreneurs. It's a sexy thing. Everybody thinks there's a lot of money in it. It might have used to be. I'm not sure about Malaysia, maybe oil and gas, but at least in my country it was investment banking, management consulting. These kind of things were sexy, at least if you were in the business world. Today everybody wants to be the next Mark Zuckerberg. I think being real, being guided. Most people, I as an entrepreneur who has tried what I've tried, I have the responsibility to share that with young people who do not yet know what they're getting into. Most young people, when they say, I want to do supply chain, I want to do finance, I want to do marketing, they don't even know what it is. Same goes for entrepreneurship. Most people don't know what it is to start a company, what it actually involves. They don't tell you about the fancy stories Friday, 10 p.m. when your friends are out having beers or in the cinema or whatnot, and you're sitting there checking receipts because you don't have an accountant yet. And you need to check everything yourself. Or when you're sitting and replying customer service emails in the middle of the night. They don't hear all those stories. I think, to answer your question, it's just reality checking yourself. So if you're an individual thinking about starting a startup, do your due diligence. Same as you would if you were considering any other opportunity in life. Find out what is that opportunity, what does it really involve, and is it the right thing for me? My advice is always go work for a startup. Go work for an early stage startup, has some funding, it's going somewhere, and work there first. Find out if it's really the thing for you. Make the mistakes with other people's money, other people's time, not your own. Very, very, very important.
But can I continue to ask a bit? Because
Absolutely.
what we face nowadays, there's not only one or two doing that, especially in Malaysia, especially when we do hiring, top performers. It's not easy to get that because those who really want, they ask for an unrealistic salary. And then secondly, if they were inside, they could leave like 3 months. They know how you do the things, and then they'll go and form out the company. Yeah, they are not afraid of like, we're telling them like, okay, it's not easy to do that. You need to have this and that. But they, I believe a lot of startup here as well, right? They don't afraid of all these things. So how do we build the teams when we have these kind of people?
There we go. I think you have this, so first of all, you have to set your own level. This is where I am. Reality check that. And know that if you are here, it's going to be very hard for you to hire people that are up here. Yeah, at least until you have a lot of money. That's the reality. Most high performers, they come, they want to learn. And if they don't feel they can learn from you, it's going to be very, very hard. So first, reality check yourself of where's your own expectations relative to what can I get. That's step number one, very, very important. Step number two, you're in this wonderful country named Malaysia that has a government which very much wants to push the technological development of the country. Yeah, they have this thing called an MSc status. So MSc status allows you to bring in foreigners from abroad, very easily. If you work for a technology, if you run a technology company or a company within the technology space, the world becomes your recruitment field. So it might not be possible for you to find the Malaysians that are interested in joining the Grabs and, you know, with a high salary and so forth. But you might be able to find the guys in Nicaragua, yeah, or Sri Lanka, or other places that, hey, they want to, one, experience Malaysia, two, they want to get out of their own country, three, they want to come work for an opportunity like you. Maybe there's a larger supply in their market. Places like Spain, Italy, and so forth. And your government supports that. It's absolutely amazing. So what we do, we use the world as our recruitment field. We hire Malaysians and we hire foreigners. There is no difference for us. For us, it's just the level of the candidate. Naturally, we think long term, which means we're always more interested in Malaysians because we want to retain them longer, you know, develop and all that kind of thing. But if you absolutely cannot find employees here, start looking abroad. We have over 10 different nationalities in our company. So, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Suri. My question is,
What do you do, Suri?
I'm a business owner.
Yeah.
If when you're running a business, a small business, for example, and you are in the capacity to expand, what would be your thoughts on? Would the business owners concentrate or focus on hiring or expanding through positions that are revenue generating? For example, more sales. When the company, what really the company needs is probably like more people at the office helping with the managing and administrative. So this is kind of a tricky decision, and I've always been told that you focus on the revenue generating positions first. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a simple question which requires a very complex answer, depending on situation. So hard for me to tell here. Saying that, I'm a core believer in sales cures all. At the end of the day, your bottom line matters. Yeah. If you have money, you survive. If you don't have money, you don't. Sometimes hiring salespeople means everyone else gets stretched more. Yeah. So I bring in one more salesperson when I actually need maybe an admin person or finance staff. Well, that means, you know, my Saturdays are gone. You have to make that decision with yourself, of course, and with your team. Are they willing to support you? Are they willing to stretch themselves even more so this business can grow? But the simple answer is I'm a firm believer in sales cures all. Doesn't really matter how many admin staff I hire if the money isn't coming in. But supply, demand, market mechanism always go together, yeah. Okay.
Of course. Hi, I'm JC from a social enterprise, a small little tech startup. So I have a similar question. Like I have this top performer who has been contributing a lot in the past 2 years and building the product together. So, you know, performer and the social enterprise, we don't pay much, we don't have high salary. So he comes to you and say like, I will ask about equity sharing, profit sharing and all those. So like, is it a common practice to, you know, give some equity away? And if it is, then how much percentage is acceptable? I don't know.
I'm not sure if it's a common practice here. I think in the tech world, it is very common practice most places that you do give stock options. If you work for larger companies, in certain key roles, you also do receive stock options. So the ability to not own decision making in the company, but own the value that the company generates. So being part of receiving something from the ship that you're part of making a success. Yeah. I think that's something you have to ask yourself. How greedy am I? Would I prefer to let this staff go? Or would I prefer to give up some of that ownership that I do have? How much you give up, at the end of the day, it's always about supply and demand. There's a million formulas out there for how you do valuations, base those valuations on what's the value that your staff gives you and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's really supply and demand. Yeah. What are you willing to give? What makes you sleep comfortable at night? And how much does that candidate expect? If you believe, I always say never hire a consultant unless a consultant pays for himself. Never give away ownership unless you get more back in value than the ownership you give away. Whether that's you raise money from investors or whether that's giving it to an employee.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? No? Final chance? All right. Thank you all for having me today. Real pleasure. I'll make sure they send out the deck. Very basic, but hopefully it gives you some tangible efforts. Here we go. All right. Also, we always are looking for amazing people, both for full-time positions as well internships, both in Malaysia and outside of Malaysia. So please do send an email if you're interested. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jonas. Really glad you could, have this sharing session with all of us. Thank you very much.